Hello class, welcome to Algebra Concepts, lesson 1.5, which is all about expressions involving absolute value. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to evaluate absolute value expressions. So quick little recap, absolute value. If we are talking about the absolute value of something, we're talking about how far away is it from 0 on a number line. So if I ask what is the absolute value of 3, that's me asking how far is the number 3 from the number 0 on a number line. Usually you guys are pretty good at saying, well, it's 3 units, and sometimes you add a duh, Miss Johnson, or an eye roll, because you think it's a silly question. But every year students get this confused, so I like to go over it. And then, what if I said, what's the absolute value of a -3? So this is me asking how far is the number -3 from the number 0 on a number line. And sometimes students say -3. But that's not true, because we don't measure distance in a negative fashion. If we have negative associated with a distance, it's usually to tell you which direction you're going, rather than the distance itself. So if you have a negative inside the absolute value, it becomes a positive, because we can't have a negative distance. So the absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of a -3 is also 3. Both numbers are 3 units away from the number 0 on a number line. Okay, so now that we've recapped that, let's jump into the lesson. Example 1, write an absolute value expression. Okay, so we have the accuracy of a meat thermometer is the positive difference between the temperature reading on the thermometer and the actual temperature of the meat. That should say meat, not mean, sorry. Of the meat, M. Write an expression to demonstrate this scenario. Okay, so we're talking about the difference between, some of you might be confused by the descriptor word here, the positive difference. So the word positive in this situation is talking about the absolute value. So it's talking about the absolute value of the difference between the temperature reading on the thermometer, T, and difference means subtraction, and the actual temperature of the meat, M. So I would write an expression like that. I would say the thermometer reading minus the actual temperature, and that would give me the accuracy of the meat thermometer. Maybe it's 1 degree off, maybe it's half a degree off. I don't know, because I wasn't given numbers for this problem. But that's one way that I could write this expression. However, since we're talking about absolute value, you could also write it one more way. You could flip the order of the variables, because it doesn't matter if you end up with a positive or a negative number. At the end, we would just say it's 2 degrees off, or it's half a degree off, okay? It doesn't matter what the number ends up being inside those absolute value symbols, okay? And one little word of caution as you're writing absolute value things down, whether it's in your notes, on the test, on the homework, make sure you make those straight up and down lines bigger than you would normally write the number 1, because I see students who sometimes mix up the absolute value symbols with the number 1. So hopefully my little advice there will help you not be one of those people. All right, question 1. I'll read it to you, and then I want you to pick which one would be the right answer, okay? At an amusement park, a vendor attempts to guess a person's weight. If they are not within 3 pounds, the person will win a prize. If a person weighs 168 pounds and the vendor makes a guess of X pounds, which expression represents the number of pounds a winning guess is away from the actual weight? Okay, so I'm going to highlight some, important little details here. We have a 3-pound difference. We have a 168 pounds. And we have that the vendor guesses X pounds. Okay, so I want you to take a minute, read through these possible answers, and see if you have one that you're like, yeah, I think it's that one. Okay? Good luck. All right, for this problem, I am going to walk you through some of the answers and reading through the answers just for some test taking tips. Okay, so as I look at these problems, I see A, B, and C all have the variable X in them, but letter D doesn't. So a test-taking tip I have for you is when you have 3 of the 4 answers with a feature like that, chances are that X is important and it should be part of your answer. So I'm going to rule out letter D. Okay, so this is a good test taking tip. If you're ever on a multiple choice question, maybe you're taking the MAP test, the MCAs, something, some sort of standardized test. If there's one answer that's the odd one out, you can usually eliminate it right away. Okay, now let's look at the next 3 guesses. So these all have X in common, and I see that 2 of them have the number 3, and 1 of them has the number 168. So I want to think to myself, which of those 2 numbers is more important? If I'm trying to figure out if the vendor can guess the person's weight, I would do 168. If the person weighs 168, I would say 168 minus whatever the vendor guessed, right? And I'm going to hope that those 2 numbers put together equals something within 3 pounds. Okay, so since I want it to be something that's within the 3 pounds, that means I would have an equals 3 pounds. It wouldn't be within the absolute value. So my answer would actually be letter C, the absolute value of the person's actual weight minus the vendor's guess. Okay, so I would cross out these 2 possible answers. All right, let's move on. And before I move on, if you have questions about that, please be sure to ask for some help. I know that can be a little confusing. This tends to be one of the trickiest parts of the lesson, okay? So don't hesitate to ask. All right, example 2, evaluate the absolute value of an algebraic expression. Evaluate the expression if x equals 6 and y equals -3. So I have the absolute value of -2 times 6 times -3 plus 5 times -3. All right, so -2 times 6 is -12, and then 5 times the -3 is -15. All right, -12 times the -3 is positive 36, and then I have -15 in the absolute value, so that would be the absolute value of the number 21, which is just 21. Okay, so you can see I just worked my way through that multiplication and changed something step by step as I went. If you have questions about that, please be sure to ask for some help. All right, we're going to jump into example 3. Evaluate an expression involving absolute value. Evaluate this expression if x equals 2. So I have 23 minus the absolute value of 3 plus 4, and then instead of x, I'm going to plug in that 2. So I have 23 minus the absolute value of 3 plus 8. So 23 minus the absolute value of 11. The absolute value of 11 is just 11. So 23 minus 11 is 12, okay? And the last one is for you to do, okay? Evaluate the expression if y equals -3. Feel free to use a calculator on this. One little hint, the absolute values kind of function like the parentheses. So you'll want to simplify what's inside your absolute value first, and then you're going to multiply with this number right out here. Okay, good luck. All right, and for this problem, hopefully when you plugged that -3 in, you said you had a -15 inside that absolute values, and then it became a -14.4, and the absolute value of -14.4 is just positive 14.4. And then you can see my work. I showed each step, and I ended up at -34.6. Okay, so if you have any questions about that problem or anything else in this video, please don't hesitate to ask for some help. I'm happy to help you. I hope you have a good day.